Now part of the Darkcast Network. Welcome to Indie Podcasts with a dark side. Secrets, deception, and a betrayal. Teenage sisters reported their mother drowned in the bathtub, but investigators would later uncover another story. What seemed like a tragic accident turned out to be a meticulously planned murder, leading to what a judge called, quote, probably the strongest case he had seen in over 30 years. Let's get into the case of Linda Andersen right now on Love and Murder. Welcome, lambs. Welcome to Love and Murder, Heartbreak to Homicide. My name is Kai, and this is your weekly true crime podcast where we discuss relationships that turn to murder. In today's episode, I tell you a case of some teenagers who thought they were smarter than Yogi Bear. But it turns out they weren't even smarter than Patrick Star. If you're new here, take a load off, take a listen, all the way to the end, and if you like it, go ahead and subscribe so you don't miss any more true crime cases. If you're a returning lamb, as usual, thank you so much for being here with me. If you didn't know, you can also subscribe on our Patreon, patreon.com/Love and Murder. You can subscribe for free so you don't miss any case that's coming out, and you do get some benefits from doing that. Patreon.com/Love and Murder. Or if you want to be a sponsor of Love and Murder, which thank you for the Lamb Patreons who sponsor this podcast. You would sign up to any bonus tier that fits your liking, and you can be a sponsor of Love and Murder while getting extras. Patreon.com/Love and Murder. I know I missed Friday's episode, your Florida Man Friday, but if you stick all the way to the end of the episode, I will let you know what happened on Friday and why your episode didn't come out. Now that we got the housekeeping out of the way, let's go ahead and grab our butts, grab our delicious glass of apple juice, because you know Kai loves her apple juice, and the place that, no lie, I get my apple juice from is BJ's. If you want to become a member of BJ's and save money on your grocery shopping while all these prices are going up and acting all crazy, then you can go ahead and use my link, which as of this recording will get you over 60% off of your first year membership at only $20 for the year. murderandlove.com/BJ's. And now let's get into this case. On January 18th, 2003, in Mississauga, Ontario, I hope I said that city right. Mississauga, if you're from there or around there, and I didn't, please let me know the pronunciation in the comments below. But this is in Ontario, Canada. 16-year-old Sandra and 15-year-old Elizabeth Andersen called 911 at 10:30 p.m. They called to report that they found their mother dead in a bathtub. The sisters told the operator that they had been out at a restaurant that evening, and when they came home, they found their mother, 43-year-old Linda Andersen, unresponsive in the bathtub. The operator told them to take their mother out of the bathtub and perform CPR on her. The sisters cried over the phone, telling the operator that they couldn't resuscitate their mom. Now, as the operator, this would be completely heartbreaking to me. Like, I would literally break down on the phone and cry. When first responders arrived, they found Linda face down in the bathtub. Her skin was already turning gray. She was still warm to the touch, but rigor mortis had begun to set in. There were no immediate signs of a struggle or foul play at the scene. Now, the sisters had a brother, but Linda's son's real name was never given, and he was only 3 at the time all this happened. They called him Bobby Andersen in the case files, but that's an alias. So we will continue to refer to him as Bobby Andersen. So Bobby went to live with other family members, and the teens moved in with their aunt. During the requested autopsy, Dr. Robert Langville, a forensic toxicologist, discovered lethal combinations in Linda's system. Blood tests showed alcohol levels 5 times above the legal driving limit. Also, codeine concentrations reached 3 times the safe threshold in Linda's system. So her death was considered an accidental drowning secondary to alcohol intoxication. The police noted that Linda had likely consumed alcohol within a half hour prior to her death. And they also noted that she had signs of cirrhosis of the liver, which means she drank a lot of alcohol, so potentially an alcoholic. So with all this evidence, this is why they ruled it an accident. That was it. Open and shut case, Johnson. But as we all know, this is Love and Murder. Now, 11 months after the murder, a male friend of one of the sisters came forward to the police. and said that one of the sisters told him that the girls had drowned their mother. So let's get into some backstory. Let's take a brief pause for a quick commercial. Lambs, are you ready for even more exclusive content? The Love and Murder Patreon community is waiting for you. Imagine getting access to extra episodes, deep dives into case details, learning more about me. I don't know why you want that. Fun games, commercial-free episodes, and exclusive case extras, all for my biggest fans. So, don't miss your chance to become an exclusive lamb. Head on to patreon.com/loveandmurder and join our community today. That's patreon.com/loveandmurder. Join now and let's dive deeper into true crime together. And now, back to the show. Linda's first marriage ended abruptly with her husband abandoning the family, forcing her to support 2 young daughters and a son alone. Linda worked as an X-ray technician and suffered from depression, which she attempted to self-medicate with alcohol. This started after her first husband had abandoned the family. Linda then got remarried, but her second marriage brought additional turmoil. Number 1, she kept drinking. Number 2, apparently her husband was drinking too because later her new husband faced convictions of drunk driving and domestic abuse in 2001. Which brings us to number 3, physical abuse within the relationship. The collapse of both marriages made Linda's struggles with depression even worse. Financial issues went up as her income went down. And this limited her ability to provide basic necessities for Sandra, Elizabeth, and Bobby. Now, normally I would say something here like she should pull up her big boy panties and do what needs to be done. However, if you haven't been in the throes of depression, you actually wouldn't understand it. It's not as easy as snap out of it. Literally, pulling yourself by yourself out of depression takes work. But you should seek help to work pushing through that depression. And when you're going through depression, it can be hard to do anything to take care of yourself, let alone take care of your kids, etc. It just depends on your level of depression. So I won't make a joke or shame anyone. However, I will say that if you feel yourself falling into depression or in a depression, don't try to deal with it alone. Get help. So anyway, that was my side note. Now let's get back to the case. So Linda fell into a deeper depression and she turned more and more to alcohol for relief. Linda's alcohol dependency soon consumed a significant portion of the household's budget. Her daughters grew frustrated watching money vanish into their mother's addiction rather than covering their basic needs, toothpaste, toilet paper, the electricity. Sandra later revealed disturbing details about her home life, including instances of Linda driving while drunk. Later, Sandra talked about experiencing childhood sexual abuse, which remained unreported even though she confided in a priest. All of this forced Sandra and Elizabeth to be the ones to have to be responsible for the household stuff that parents are usually the ones who deal with. And remember, they're only teenagers. They're literally not ready for this. They also had a growing resentment towards their mother's addiction because not only couldn't they afford just the basics, they couldn't actually afford the material stuff that their friends enjoyed. So they just started getting jealous of their friends and being resentful towards their mother for this. This is when they started researching methods to end their situation. Now, back to the friend being told that the teens drowned their mom. So in January of 2004, the sisters threw a party. Sandra had gotten drunk and boasted to a male friend that both she and Elizabeth had drowned their mother. Now, if getting drunk was the issue all along with their mother, why would you turn around and get drunk yourself? But either way, that's what happened, and that friend took a page out of my book and immediately went to the police. Instead of making an immediate arrest, investigators thought to get concrete evidence of the accusation, which, is smart because you would want this to hold up in court. Plus, these girls only seem like a harm to their mother, which that's already done, but not a harm to the public. I'm pretty sure they wouldn't have taken this route if the girls seemed like they were a threat to the public. Police wired the friend with audio and video recording devices and even gave him a wired car for future interactions. Over the next month, he engaged his sisters in casual conversation about the murder. I would not be good at this at all. First of all, I'm going to be sweating because I know I'm wired, and I'm going to be like, what if something happens? What if they're the mob? Knowing that I've known these girls since they were 5, but now suddenly they're going to be in the mob. I wouldn't be able to do this. And I was supposed to do casual conversation about the murder. I'd be like, so, how about that murder, huh? Like, I would not be good at this at all. Sandra and Elizabeth, completely unaware that they were being recorded, revealed every detail of the crime. In the meantime, investigators seized the sisters' computers and were able to uncover damning digital evidence. Their chat logs, they chatted about this, revealed extensive preparations for the murder. They chatted about this. Plus searches about mixing alcohol with Tylenol 3. They chatted about this. One friend ended an online conversation with the phrase, quote, well, good luck, wear gloves. They chatted about this. Actually, there were 3 friends who'd learned about Sandra and Elizabeth's intentions well before Linda's murder. However, instead of letting authorities or parents know, these friends actively encouraged the plot. The teenagers believed killing their mother would get them access to $133,000 in insurance money. That's how much your mom's life was worth to you? $133,000? Do you even know how little money that is? Not saying any price is a good price for your mom's life, but you get where I'm coming from, right? Also, I hope all of the enablers were picked up too, because what the fuck? Going through the DMs, they chatted about this. Police were able to find the depth of the friends' involvements. The sisters had spent hours going through various killing techniques. I researched, well, back when I was a teenager, not now, because right now I research all true crime. But back when I was a teenager, I mean, the only research I did was like for school papers and stuff, not killing techniques. Plus, my mom's from the Caribbean. That would have never entered my mind because I would have thought that my mom was 1,500 steps ahead of me. And if I searched how to kill, she would have already sensed that I was searching that and she would be behind me. What are you typing? And no. You don't want that scenario. I'm not going to go into detail, but you don't want that scenario. So these girls are sitting on a computer typing up or searching killing techniques, and they ultimately selected drowning as their preferred method. They believed this approach would be, quote, fast and spectacular. I didn't stutter. Fast and spectacular. And this is in quotes. Their computer history also revealed extensive research about the alcohol and the Tylenol 3. They wanted to know about combining it, and they wanted to understand how these substances would affect their mother's heart rate. Like, you're doing all these freaking searches for all of this. Why don't you, search how to become a doctor? What do I need to finish in school to become a doctor? Then, on top of that, all these decisions were shared with their friends who responded with laughter. Were those friends picked up? This is what I need to know. The teenagers outlined their intentions for the insurance money, which included going on a European vacation, buying a bigger house, and buying a space for growing marijuana. Clearly, these little children, oh my God, as people say, their frontal lobe isn't fully developed, but that's a whole other topic. Anyways, these little children who don't know literally anything, don't understand how much $133,000 is. $133,000, you were going to go on a European vacation, and on top of that, buy a bigger house. And on top of that, I don't even think the $133,000 would have bought the house. But okay. The friends, who should have been picked up, grew confident in their plan with each supportive interaction. Police were able to get the entire story from their wired friend, and they got it straight from the girls' mouth. Sandra and Elizabeth initiated their murder plan during lunch on January 18th, 2003. Initially, the sisters gave their mother vodka to make sure she would become heavily intoxicated. Then they administered 6 Tylenol 3 tablets containing codeine, specifically chosen to slow their mother's heart rate. They drugged the out of her. Then the sisters filled the bathtub with water. Then they helped Linda to the bathroom, where she struggled to get into the tub due to the combination of alcohol and Tylenol 3. Meanwhile, while she's trying to get into the tub, Sandra and Elizabeth put on gloves and told their mother that they were trying to help her relax by giving her a massage. Sandra then instructed her mother to lie face down, claiming that she would scrub her back for her. And as soon as Linda had her back turned towards them, without hesitation, Sandra pushed Linda's head underwater, holding it under for 4 minutes until her mother stopped moving. What all the expletives is going on here? How cold-blooded are you? For 133, oh my God. Oh my God. When she let go, the sisters found their mother's skin had turned gray, which confirmed to them that their mother had died. After the murder, Sandra and Elizabeth celebrated at a restaurant with friends, which basically what they were doing was creating their alibi for their whereabouts. So after the entire investigation, the sisters were arrested on January 21st, 2004, and their trial began in November 2005. The prosecution presented all of this evidence that the investigation had gathered, which was pretty much everything minus them with a picture showing a date, Sandra holding their mother's head under the water, and Elizabeth holding a thumbs up sign. So, I mean, basically they had everything. So to me, the defense shouldn't have anything to use, right? But we all know that the defense will find something. The defense attempted to shift the focus, painting a picture of a dysfunctional household and Linda's alcoholism. They argued that the sisters had been emotionally and psychologically strained, implying that they too were victims. Which, to be fair, I'm not saying that they aren't victims, but there are plenty of households with children, unfortunately, who have to deal with this too. Not saying they should deal with this or should have to deal with this, because that's real negligence on the part of the parents. But these children don't turn around and turn into murderers. They get the bleep out of the house as soon as they can, which is still unfortunate for them because they may not be financially ready for the world, not to mention the psychological issues that may need treated, but they don't murder anyone. So, yeah, you can imply that they were victims too, but that's literally all you could imply. However, like any sane person, after hearing the overwhelming evidence, in June 2006, the jury returned a guilty verdict for first-degree murder. Justice Bruce Duncan said, quote, "The two defendants set out to commit a perfect crime, but instead they created the perfect prosecution." Apparently, this was a very famous saying. The court sentenced both sisters to 10 years, 6 years in prison plus 4 years of community supervision. This represented the maximum sentence possible for juveniles under the Youth Criminal Justice Act. I forgot this was Canada, because I was about to say, what? They were also banned from contacting each other while they were in prison. Justice Duncan acknowledged the sisters' challenging home environment. After consideration of all factors, he noted that although their mother earned a good income, the girls grew up in, quote, poor, depressing, and degrading conditions. Both sisters served their incarceration time in adult women's prisons, even though they were tried as youth offenders. The Crown launched efforts to reclaim the insurance payouts the sisters received after their mother's death, which, if you remember, was only $133,000, which actually the total amount that was paid out was $200,674.90. Upon investigation, authorities discovered that by 2006, only about $48,000 was left. Bobby had gotten $67,000, and due to Canadian law preventing beneficiaries from profiting from criminal acts, investigators had to recover whatever he had left, which is scummy, not from the law, but the sisters. You scumbags murdered your mom, and then on top of that, ruined this little boy's life. This legal principle aims to prevent murderers motivated by insurance payout, which, makes sense. The teens had gotten $133,674.90 after the payout. So Bobby had gotten $67,000 and the teens had gotten the rest. Actually, in the end, after the investigation and realizing Bobby literally had nothing to do with the murder, which, I mean, I could have told you that because he was only 3 years old, the insurance gave him what was left of the money, which was the $48,000, which actually was the $48,487.04. So I have a feeling that $48,000 was from Bobby's $67,000, and the teens only had like $487 left. That's what I think. Now, the Youth Criminal Justice Act in Canada focuses on rehabilitation over punishment and shaped their sentencing outcome. This approach allows young offenders opportunities for rehabilitation and eventual reintegration into society. The law mandates strict protection of juvenile offenders' identities, ensuring their chance at rehabilitation remains uncompromised. This protection extends beyond media coverage, essentially making a shield that allows young offenders to rebuild their lives after serving their sentences. Like I said, the Canadian justice system primarily focuses on rehabilitating young offenders, and this approach includes providing opportunities for education, offering counseling services, supporting community reintegration, and focusing on behavior modification. The system's emphasis on rehabilitation stems from research showing that young offenders respond better to corrective measures than punitive actions. In fact, conditional sentences serve as alternatives to incarceration, allowing courts to maintain deterrent effects without compromising rehabilitation. Criminal defense lawyer Liam O'Connor addressed the possibility of reformed youth offenders entering legal professions. Quote, "I might give a youthful killer a second chance to become a lawyer, but not an adult murderer." Therefore, the Ontario Bar requires individuals to report criminal proceedings to determine if they meet ethical standards. The rehabilitation-focused approach has shown success. As a result, many judges view conditional sentences as, quote, innovative alternatives to incarceration. This aligns with Parliament's goal of reducing reliance on imprisonment through alternative sentencing mechanisms. But the system's case prompted discussions about youth sentencing guidelines in Canada. The public and some members of the media expressed outrage, saying that the sentence was too lenient for such a horrible crime. If they had been tried as adults, they would have received life sentences. In discussing rehabilitation versus punishment, this approach clashed with the public's desire for retribution and punishment in dealing with this case. And apparently there was also a movie made about the case called The Perfect Sisters. Some thought that the movie took a much too sympathetic look at the girl's story and that it didn't show how cold-blooded and calculating they were. Some legal professionals argued that a youthful killer might deserve a second chance, while others believed that an adult murderer should not be given the same opportunity. Now, back to the girls. Sandra was released to a halfway house in 2009. Now, my thing is, she literally committed the act. Like, she's the one who held her mother's head under the water for 4 minutes. Why was she released first? Elizabeth was then released in 2010. Sandra completed her university education, earning a degree in scientific studies. Elizabeth married and started a family. She then pursued legal studies, graduating from law school. The path to becoming a practicing lawyer required additional steps for her because of Ontario's bar admission process that I told you before that demanded characters, quote, be of good character. The Law Society of Ontario requires disclosure of all criminal proceedings, potentially triggering hearings to access ethical standards, which I wouldn't have thought about it in that capacity. The prosecution or defense could attach your character as a lawyer depending on your past. I mean, they could turn the jury against you, basically. Imagine being on the jury for a case where someone murdered their parents, for instance, and your lawyer is known to have murdered their mom. There's so much the prosecution can use against them in this instance. Or if they were on the prosecution, there's so much the defense could use against them. You know what I'm saying? So, yeah, I didn't even think about it in that aspect. And if you remember a quote that lawyer Liam O'Connor said earlier, that I said that he might give a youthful killer a second chance at like becoming a lawyer, for instance, as opposed to an adult offender, which I would have said if it was Sandra doing this, I wouldn't have given her a chance, but maybe Elizabeth, because she's not the one who actually held the mother's head under, but I'm not really sure either. By 2020, both sisters had established professional careers. Their successful reintegration into society demonstrates how young offenders can transform their lives when given appropriate support and opportunities to reform. Which, I mean, it wasn't a stretch that they would be reformed into society. It wasn't like they were trying to be serial killers. They just wanted to kill their mom. So were they really rehabilitated? Like, they just wanted to get their mom out of the way there, and they completed that goal. They weren't about to go on a Sandra and Elizabeth killing spree. So this case, later known as the Bathtub Girls murder, was the first documented case in Canada where siblings plotted and carried out the murder of a parent. Wow, that's pretty good for Canada. I wonder if it was it did say it was the first, because I was about to say, I wonder if it was just the first documented case, but it literally said that. So, what did you think of this case and the ending? Let me know in the comments below, and I will put out a poll asking, do you believe in the reintegration program that Canada had and that it did work for the girls? So, I guess the answers will be yes, no. So that is a poll that I'll put out. You can see that poll in the Patreon, even if you sign up for free, patreon.com/loveandmurder. You could also see it on the Spotify if I'm able to post it on the Spotify, but 100% you'll see it in the Patreon. So that's the best place to get it, patreon.com/loveandmurder. And you don't have to be a paid member to see it on the Patreon. Otherwise, if you don't want to answer the poll question, just go ahead and leave your comments below and I will read them out in a future episode. And that is all I have for you. Oh, yeah, I did tell you that I would let you know what happened on Friday. On Friday, I ended up going to the dentist and getting some work done on one of my teeth, and they literally numbed the entire left side of my face. I did have an episode recorded. I just needed to finish editing, but when I got home, I was in so much pain. I didn't feel like anything except curling up in a ball and doing nothing. So that's what I did. That's what happened to the episode on Friday. So I do apologize that you didn't get that. If you're new here, I know you keep wondering why I'm talking about my teeth. I will let you know in a future episode. I don't want to take up too much of your time here, but I have spoken about it. I think it was the end of season 3, the beginning of season 4. Basically, previous dental office completely messed up my mouth. Like I said, I won't talk about it too much here. You can go back in my previous episodes and you'll hear more about it. But I'm still in the process of fixing what they messed up. So that's what happened to Friday's episode. So I do apologize that I missed getting your episode out. And thank you for being patient with me. And my mouth still hurts a little bit, so I'm not going to be reading comments today. But as you know, I will read it in a future episode. So go ahead and leave me the comments. What did you think about this case? Let me know in the comments below. That's all I have for you today. And as we end each full episode, I want to remind you that it's, say it with me now, all love and no murder, y'all. Stay tuned for my commercial guest.
Hi everyone, I'm Cindy, the host of True Crime California, a weekly podcast about murders and other true crime that takes place in the Great Golden State. Join me every week as I talk about a new case, some very well known and others not so well known, but always coming straight out of California. True Crime California is a proud member of the Dark Cast Network.